All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most counterintuitive, but also one of the most powerful laws of strategy out there. Law 20, do not commit to anyone. We're going to uncover why holding back, keeping your options open, can actually give you the ultimate advantage, whether you're talking about a negotiation, a relationship, or even a major conflict. So let's just start with a really simple question. Why does playing hard to get actually work? I mean, think about it. It's a dynamic we've all seen, right? In romance, in business, in politics. Why is it that the person who kind of holds back, who stays uncommitted, so often ends up holding all the cards? This is way more than just playing games. It's actually a fundamental principle of human psychology and a real cornerstone of strategic power. So here's the law, laid out in its purest form. It is the fool who always rushes to take sides. Now, the thinking behind this is pretty straightforward when you break it down. The moment you commit to a person or to a cause, you're giving up a little piece of your independence. You become predictable, and your power starts to fade. But if you do the opposite, if you stay uncommitted, you actually force other people to compete for your support. And in that pursuit, you, my friend, become their master. Okay, so to really get our heads around this, here's what we're going to cover. First, the basic power of independence. Then we'll look at a masterclass from the Virgin Queen herself. We'll also talk about how to stay above the fray, and then really dive into the psychology of desire, why this stuff works. After that, we'll see how you can apply this law today, and maybe most importantly, we'll explore the dangers when this whole strategy can totally backfire. Let's kick things off with the power of independence. The core idea is simple. By refusing to take sides, you become the master. Just think about it like this. The second people feel like they have you, like you're in their pocket, you lose all power over them. The moment you fully commit your support, you're not the prize anymore. The game is basically over. But if you stay just a little bit aloof, a little uncommitted, you gain this incredible power from their attention, from their frustrated desire. You literally become the center of gravity that they all start to revolve around. And when you're looking for an example of this in action, there is no one, and I mean no one, better to study than Queen Elizabeth I of England. Seriously, this is a masterclass in political courtship. When she took the throne back in 1558, the pressure on her was just immense. I mean, she was a young, unmarried queen, and everyone was telling her, marry a powerful prince, secure an alliance, you have to produce an heir. But Elizabeth, she understood something profound. She knew her greatest weapon wasn't going to be a marriage alliance, but the perpetual promise of one. And look, this wasn't some short-term trick she pulled off for a year or two. No, this was the defining strategy of her entire 45-year reign. I mean, from the second she sat on that throne, the pressure to marry was constant, but for decades, she masterfully dangled that possibility in front of all these powerful English nobles and European royals. She turned her entire court into this grand theater of romantic pursuit, with her as the one and only unattainable prize. And we're not talking about minor players here. Just look at this list of suitors. These were the leaders of the most powerful nations in Europe at the time. You've got princes from Sweden, Austria, France, all of them waiting in the wings. And by keeping them all hoping, she brilliantly prevented them from ganging up against her. See, as long as each one of them believed they had a shot at winning England through marriage, they wouldn't dare attack it. She turned them from potential enemies into rivals, all competing for her affection instead of her throne. It's so easy to look at this and think Elizabeth was just being indecisive, but that's not it at all. She had this incredibly deep understanding of power, which she summed up perfectly herself. I would rather be a beggar and single than a queen and married. She knew that to marry was to pick a side, and in doing so, to instantly make an enemy of everyone else. As a married queen, her power would be diluted. She'd be subordinate to her husband. But as the single, virgin queen, she was basically an object of worship, and she was in complete total control. So what was the result of all this? The strategic payoff was absolutely immense. England managed to avoid being dragged into those endless, costly wars that were constantly raging on the continent. And Elizabeth herself? She never had to give up power to a foreign husband or to some overmighty English nobleman. Through this long, brilliant game of flirting and then pulling back, she dominated every man in every country that tried to conquer her. And in doing so, she kept England secure and herself in absolute power. It's truly incredible. Okay, so that's the courtship side of the law, but it's about so much more than that. It also applies to how you position yourself strategically between warring factions. This is all about the art of strategic neutrality. The principle is exactly the same. Instead of rushing in to help one side, you stand back, you conserve your energy, and you just wait for them to wear each other out. And for our next example, we're heading to one of the most dangerous political landscapes in all of history, Renaissance Italy. I mean, this place was a total viper's nest of shifting alliances. You had these powerful city-states like Florence and Venice constantly at each other's throats, all while trying to fend off invasions from huge powers like France and Spain. And right in the middle of all this chaos was the small state of Mantua, ruled by a woman named Isabella d'Este. The book uses this fantastic little story to explain the strategy, the parable of the fox. It goes like this. Two cats find a piece of cheese, but they can't agree on how to split it fairly. So they ask a fox to be the judge. And the fox, of course, nibbles a bit from one piece to make them even, and then a bit from the other, and he keeps doing this until he's eaten the entire thing. That is the essence of staying above the fray. You don't join the fight. You position yourself to be the one who claims the prize they're all fighting over. And that story perfectly illustrates what Isabella d'Este was doing. Her tiny little state of Mantua was completely surrounded by giants. If she committed to France, Spain would crush her. If she sided with Venice, Milan would attack. So what did she do? She committed to no one. She played this double game, sending flattering letters to everyone, exchanging gifts, gathering intelligence from all sides, but never, ever pledging her troops or her treasury. And while all the great powers were bankrupting themselves fighting each other, Isabella cleverly preserved Mantua's wealth and its independence. Okay, so we've seen how the strategy plays out in history with queens and rulers, but let's get to the really fascinating part. Why does it actually work? To understand that, we have to dig into the psychology behind it all. It really comes down to the powerful dynamics of human desire and respect. The power dynamic here is actually pretty simple when you lay it out. Look at the person who commits. They become an open book, right? They're predictable. Their support is just taken for granted, and because of that, they often lose respect. But the uncommitted person, they remain a mystery. Their independence creates this aura of power. Other people aren't sure what they're going to do next, so they try harder, they work harder to win them over. Desire is contagious. As soon as you create it, suddenly everyone wants to be the one to finally win you over, to possess the thing that others can't have. And this brings us to what we can call the virgin queen effect. It's the strategy of stirring up interest and luring people in with the possibility of having you, but without ever fully giving yourself away. And by doing that, you maintain this constant state of attention and desire from everyone around you. You keep them hooked. Because here's the fundamental truth of it all. The moment you commit, the magic is gone. It just evaporates. People no longer need to pursue you. They don't have to fight for your attention or try to win you over anymore. The pursuit is the engine of desire. And once that pursuit ends, well, the game is over, and your leverage just disappears right along with it. All right, so this is all great. We've got lessons from queens and Renaissance strategists, but how do we actually take this and apply it in our own lives? Well, this law is incredibly relevant in the modern world, especially when you think about our careers and our professional lives. Let's look at some modern examples. Take a freelancer. If they sign an exclusive contract with one client, they immediately lose power. But the freelancer who keeps multiple clients competing for their limited time, they're in high demand, and they can basically name their price. Or think about a job candidate. If you have one offer, you have very little leverage. But if you have 3 companies fighting over you, suddenly you're in the driver's seat. The book even points to Henry Kissinger back in '68, who secretly offered information to both the Nixon and Humphrey campaigns. Why? To make sure he'd have a powerful position in the White House no matter who won. It's the exact same principle. Don't commit until you absolutely have to, and always keep your options open. Okay, but here's a really important warning. No law of power is absolute. This is a very delicate and honestly a very difficult game to play. If you take it too far or if you play it badly, it can totally blow up in your face. This isn't about just being flaky or indecisive. It's about being strategic. There's a big difference. So that leads us to the critical question we have to ask. Where is the line? When does this powerful strategy go too far? When does that alluring mystery just become frustrating distrust? When does playing both sides lead to you having no one on your side at all? And the risks are very real. First, if you're playing 2 rivals against each other and they figure it out, they might just decide that their real common enemy is you. Second, if you keep people waiting around forever, that hopeful desire can turn into bitter resentment. They'll just lose interest and move on. You could also just come across as fickle and weak, like someone who can't make a decision, which is the opposite of powerful. And the ultimate danger, of course, is that in trying to keep everyone as an option, you end up alienating everybody and find yourself totally and completely isolated. And this brings us to the most important and subtle points of the whole law. It's not an absolute ban on commitment. I mean, sometimes you have to commit. You have to build alliances. You have to show that you're dependable. The real key here is to maintain your inner independence. You might have to commit on the surface for appearance's sake, but deep down, you always preserve that unspoken freedom to change your course if the situation really demands it. And I think we should end with this really powerful thought from the 17th century philosopher Baltasar Gracian, because it just perfectly captures the spirit of this law. He wrote, "Do not commit yourself to anybody or anything, for that is to be a slave." His point is that to commit fully is to become a slave to someone else's will, their cause, their fortune. By keeping yourself free of those binding obligations, you stand in control of your own destiny. And maybe that's the ultimate power, the freedom to always choose your own path.